Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. Again, if you're listening to this, it's a new name. Used to be 150K Podcast. We're rebranding, we're revamping. But I'm super excited today because I have with me special guest Debbie Hart. Now, I didn't specifically meet you through, but we have a mutual friend, Shawn Finnigan, who's been on the show before, great person, and you and him do a podcast together. But for people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you help, and what you do.
Yeah, we have a podcast and live events together called Ignition Point. So that is kind of the umbrella of everything that we do. The podcast and the live events seek to bring inspiration, knowledge, tools, and resources for entrepreneurs across all ages and stages. Because as an entrepreneur myself, I learned the hard way. There's a lot of things that we don't know that we don't know. And the more experts that you can just learn from about branding, marketing, sales, scaling, hiring, small business taxes, small business loans, benefits for employees when you get to that level. There's so many things to know beyond just mastering your product or your service as you grow. And a lot of times people, entrepreneurs either are leaving money on the table or not growing and scaling as fast as they could or should, or not building an exit strategy so that they have a sellable asset, only because, again, they don't know what they don't know. So that's what we provide with the podcast. They're always self made millionaires, so they know what they're talking about. And they talk about those things that they learned the hard way and how they overcame them. And then we, on the live events, we bring in experts in different fields. So recently we just had Baron Baptiste, who grew a global company himself from scratch with no investors, built 300 franchises, New York Times bestselling author. And he talked about how he was able to do that. And then we brought in some other experts, branding experts. We brought in Forbes Riley at one of our events, who is the queen of developing your elevator pitch. And she spent a 2 hour workshop teaching people how to develop their unique pitch. Because if you can't sell what you've got, no matter how good your product or service is, if you don't know how to sell it, you're not going to get anywhere. So we also teach networking skills, live event skills. And then in addition to the podcasts and the live events, Shawn and I have a few things we do differently to support entrepreneurs. Shawn has a tax hive business that helps entrepreneurs learn and small business owners deal with small business tax planning, which will save them a lot more money than just turning in a bunch of receipts to someone at the end of the year. And then I have a consulting and a course business for entrepreneurs at different stages. I have ones clear down as young as for teenagers. I have entrepreneurship classes for teenagers. I have an evergreen course that's a year long that's like a virtual MBA. And then I have private consulting that covers 40 areas of profitability for business owners. Again, a lot of times that they just don't understand what key pieces they might be missing and leaving money on the table. So that's what I do and we do, and we're just here to serve the community, because this is the future, future business owners of America, and we want and we need you to succeed, because that is what builds our economy.
And I love a lot because, like, I followed you guys for a while. And one thing I really liked, I liked your youth event because, like, when I was younger, as a someone that's been in sales and entrepreneurship, I didn't have anyone giving me any ideas. And I think you guys really did like a youth one, didn't you? Like a youth ignite or something like
Yes,
that.
Ignition Point also has teen entrepreneur events, and we that was our third. So we've had two that taught, that brought in speakers that taught how to build a business as a young person, and then we taught them how to come up with ideas. We taught them how to kind of pitch on the fly. And then several of those students have been taking either my classes or some other entrepreneurship courses throughout the year. So this time we brought those ones back, showed them how to create a professional pitch deck, brought in business owners who donated seed money and mentorship to the winners.
Mhm.
So it was an incredible experience for these teenagers.
Yeah, no, I love what you guys do, and I want to I want to highlight you more now because, like, I think when we talked offline, I told you I have two daughters. One is 21, who's more into acting, and one is 9. Then I have a son who's 18. But I always am trying to bring more successful women entrepreneurs on my show because, like, I'll go to events, right? And I'll see it's like 60 to 70% women, but the speakers are predominantly male. So I'm always wanting to get the actual aspect of women that are like changing, like Forbes Fridays is amazing. I she did what 2.9 billion in sales. That's like unreal. So what got you
Yep.
even into doing entrepreneurship? Was it something you were just a little kid like this, or what got you into that game?
No, I didn't know anything about business or entrepreneurship. I was not raised that way. They don't teach this in most public schools. I was pretty much raised to believe that, and I still that being a woman meant my fulfilling my calling was mostly supporting my husband as a provider and being there for my children. So 11 years ago, I was mostly a stay-at-home homeschooling mom. I must have had just kind of an entrepreneurship heart because I'd always have a tiny little side hustle where I would teach children's performing groups or a little bit of life coaching or something like that, but never more than a couple hours a week because I had 6 kids and
Mhm.
that was my full-time job. And I had gotten married and started having babies right out of high school. I had my first two while I was 19 because they're only 10 and a half months apart. So I
Yeah.
had 2 kids before I was even 20, two more in a couple more years. So I had my first 4 kids in 5 years, had two more after. So someday my thought was someday I would go get my degree when my youngest was in school. I loved psychology, I loved human potential. And so someday when all my baby, because I thought, how would I go to school when I've got all these babies, right? And someday never came. I ended up with a divorce. Um, and also, it was a pretty nasty one. When I was served the divorce papers, it also had a paper on there from the attorney that said if you're not off the property immediately, you'll be arrested for trespassing. And since it was on an attorney's letterhead, I didn't know that that wasn't legal. I quickly found out all the bank accounts had been emptied out, so I couldn't get anyone to help me myself. So I told my kids, "You've got 5 minutes to pack up your most important things, and we are going to go live with some of our friends. And I
Mhm.
don't know how long, and we'll probably never coming home." Is what I had to tell my children. We bounced around in people's basements for about 3 years while I figured out entrepreneurship the hard way. Because
Mhm.
again, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have anyone teaching me this. I hadn't gone to school. I had not developed a career. So I couldn't even get a normal 9 to 5 job anyway, because it wouldn't cover daycare expenses for 6 kids,
Right.
let alone my living expenses, because I was not getting alimony or child support and I had nothing. So I just figured out how to make money because I had to. And so now that is why I am so passionate about making all of these resources and knowledge as accessible as possible for as many people as possible, simply because of my own story and my own journey. It wouldn't have been such a long, hard road had I had access to some of these things before. And so that's why we're very proactive about getting these resources and trainings out there.
No, I love it. First, that is a crazy story. I'm glad that you have, because I see your life now. I'm glad you have overcome, but I'm sure that was crazy. So you pretty much were in a spot where you just had to. Like there was no like I know a lot of people joke about I'm gonna burn the boats. You look at them and go, you're not burning the boats. You literally had no boats. They were burnt. You had to go forward. How did you
Yeah.
what was your thought? Because my mind, I love this type of stuff. Not that you had to deal with that because that's crazy, but what was your mindset or how did you build the fortitude with that? Because a lot of people would have just folded.
Well, luckily, my passion had been psychology and personal development. So I had read a lot of personal development books, a lot of Tony Robbins and Simon Sinek and those guys. And so I hadn't had a lot of official training in that yet, but I had the mindset and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was very difficult to get through those first few years. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And yet now I truly have come full circle to where I realize it's made me the relentlessly driven and ambitious woman that I am. And I do get to support other women in that now. But I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So it was very, very difficult, but at least because of my passion for personal development, I made a conscious decision every day to get better instead of better. And when we have those hard, difficult, horrific moments that we all go through, we all have that refiner's fire. Well, we all walk through the fire. And this is where the brand was developed and the logo was developed. I call it your ignition point because it's choice. Will you let that fire consume you or refine you? And it is a choice. So you're valid. You know, when we go through these hard things, when someone betrays us, when someone abandons us, when someone steals from us, when someone takes our business idea, when someone talks behind our back and steals a client or hurts our child, whatever it is, we are valid and justified in feeling hurt and whining and complaining and commiserating about it with others. But when we do, we just simply stay stuck.
Mhm.
It's not actually improving us, it's not getting anywhere. So because I'm very passionate about personal development, I think all entrepreneurs could deserve a coach that not just business fundamentals but also personal development, whether you have one of each or someone like me that does both. It's very necessary because those challenges will stop you dead in your tracks and that fire will consume you if you don't have the knowledge and tools and skills to manage your emotions and your mindset to turn it into a refiner's fire and propel you forward so that you're learning from those experiences and letting them be feedback instead of letting them consume you and just roll over and just fall apart and be incapacitated with that fear or that sadness or whatever it is. Again, you're justified. You're valid.
Mhm.
Those things were hard. Those people shouldn't do them. And yet, the longer we sit in those negative emotions, talking about how awful and hard it is, the longer it takes us to actually get up and pick up the pieces and move on and build something new.
Yeah. No, you dropped a lot of bombs there in a good way. One, life is a choice. What happens to us, we can't control. How we respond, like my friend Brian Bogart says, is in our control. You decided to not let it control you. You let the fire refine you. Because when you go into a fire, because I like this type of stuff, if you're being refined, when gold's refined, it takes out the impurities, or the stuff just gets melted. So, to your point, either you could have just dropped and got melted, or you got refined into the person you are today. How big has a coach been in your life? I know it's helped me out a lot because I've had personal development coaches, I've had business coaches, but for entrepreneurs starting out, people that are just listening, maybe they're just at that beginning dream stage. How important is a coach in your life and what value do they bring if they're kind of on the fence? Because, a lot of us entrepreneurs are like, oh, I'm just going to try and make it and do it. But it's a 90% fail rate too.
It is. And that's why I do believe that coaching and mentoring is a key defining factor. Someone holding you accountable, someone who is cheerleading you, educating you, someone that you show up with weekly. You define your own goals, but they show up and say, did you or did you not accomplish this each week? And there are different levels to that, but there's a lot of the life coaching institutes, Tony Robbins business coaching institutes, they do all of their own research and they do show anywhere from a 65 clear up to an 85% chance more likely to succeed and achieve your goals if you have a coach in your life. Now, if you are in the position that I was left in with literally nothing, you can't afford a coach.
Right.
But there's always a resource, right? There are the podcasts, which is why I do one now, and they're in 15 minutes or less. So everybody has 15 minutes. And there's books at the library. If you can't afford to buy books off of Amazon or eBay for used, get to the local library. They're free. There's so many. So reading the book, starting with the podcast, and then getting an accountability partner who's maybe not someone who's a professional coach yet. And I do say get one as soon as you can afford to get one because the ROI, I mean, like for me, I guarantee to double their ROI in 90 days or they don't pay because I have proven systems. But if you can't get to that point yet, find someone, refine your circles of people who are not commiserating and not whining and complaining, but who also want to rise and you can set up a time to meet every Monday at 10 a.m. with an accountability partner or a group of 7 or 8, like building your own mastermind or intention group. If you're proactive with other people who are in that same boat and they're just one step ahead of you or just one step behind you, and you can rise together until you can all maybe chip in and afford group coaching together. It's just, if you're proactive in seeking the solutions to what you want, then the doors do start to open, but you have to be ready, willing, and able to take action and decide that that is what you're going to do.
Well, I loved how you did that though. You're like, yes, coaches is important, but sometimes people aren't at that step. The library. I remember when I was first starting out, I was a country boy and I got into sales and I had to learn, or I would listen to videos or different things. And now I do pay for coaches because it makes sense, but I had to get to that level. But having someone I think in your corner is the biggest key because it's not an easy game. I call it a game. It's not an easy life. Like entrepreneurship is not like your normal 9 to 5, you go and just do the thing. So I wanna shift a little bit here, and you laugh because I know you've been through
Well,
it, but
this is what I say to people. What's the best part about being self-employed? And usually the answer is nobody's telling me what to do. I'm my own boss, right? And I said, what's the hardest thing about being self-employed? Nobody's telling me what to do. I have to figure it all out. So the best and the
yes.
worst is the same thing. But I can't even tell you how many times almost every client I've ever had has said to me within the first or second call, wow, I thought I was good at making and achieving my own goals, which is why I chose to be self employed. But I realized at all the goals we set from the last meeting, I almost did not do them. And it was because we had this meeting and I didn't want to get up and get on the call and tell Debbie that I had not done them. And
Mhm.
sometimes the calls at 9 a.m. and they got up at 4 a.m. that very day. If they're new to coaching and they're new to habits and discipline, she's like, I got up at 4 a.m. to make sure that I got my goals done before our call at 9.
That good, but that's what you need. You need someone that understands what you're going through, has the knowledge to shrink time, and can impact you to make the choices you need to make. Because I think a lot of times people think coaches tell you what to do, and I think it's more of they help guide you with the decisions you need to make because they can't do the work for you. They can't do the aspects for you, but they can see the blind spots and say, "Hey, move forward here."
Helping you see your own blind spots. And there are different coaches that offer different ways of that. So for me, I'm a combination there with the mindset and the drive and the why. We do that, but that's not enough. I quote Tony Robbins a lot on this, saying, there's no amount of sitting in the garden chanting, there are no weeds, that are going to make the weeds disappear. Mindset and
100%.
drive and determination are foundational and pivotal, but they're not enough. You have to actually take action, but you have to take right action, correct action. You have to know proven systems, because also there's no amount of running west chasing a sunrise that is going to get you to your goal. No matter how hard you believe and how many affirmations and cold plunges that you do, you have to actually have proven systems as well. So if you work with, it depends on where you're at. Mindset coaches, leadership coaches, accountability partners are usually the most affordable way to get started. And if that's where you're at, I mean, developing the accountability and the discipline is where you get started. But when you get into the level of scaling and proven systems, you probably need to start working with someone that has proven systems as well. And it's just a matter of upgrading where you're at as quickly as you're able.
No, it makes sense because like a lot of people I do, so I'm a sales coach. That's what I help people do. But until they have their mindset right, I can give them systems and processes all day. But if they're not willing to do and put the work in, it doesn't go. So I understand you got to have the foundation, then you have the systems and processes, then you move forward from there. Just like I joke with people, I would never tell people how to run their business. I know one key aspect of what I do. So finding the right person is, I think, the key thing to do. How do you help people or give people insight into finding where they're at? Like, how do you
Yeah,
guide people there?
I have a full evaluation. We have different levels of that for startups and new entrepreneurs. It's just a free 45-minute consultation. It is actually worth $3,000. We'll do it, dive into where they're at, looking at their annual revenue, net profits, gross profit margins. and giving them 3 strategies where they can start to scale. If they're a 7, 8-figure company, we're gonna go into a full deep dive. 40 is what we call it. It's a 12-hour evaluation. We can talk, and if they're down the road and they're looking at eventually wanting to sell, but they haven't built a scalable system to where they don't have to be in the chair for dollars anymore, then we'll be looking at that. And that's anywhere from a 2 to 3 to a 5 to 8 year process, depending on where they're at. But this is what the first meeting is all about, is finding out exactly where they're
Mhm.
at. I had a brand new business owner not very long ago. He had a brand new business and only had 3 clients. And all he wanted to talk about was his $50 million exit strategy. And I'm like, honey, you got to be making sales. That is years down the, oh, but I want the
Yeah.
vision. I'm like, yes, the vision. Okay, throw that on your vision board. And then, but for our time together, we're going to talk about your market dominating position. Okay. So, because you need leads in the door right now before you're even, there's no sellable asset until
No.
you are making, you're not even covering your expenses at this point in time. So it's line upon line, precept upon precept, like anything else.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because everyone loves the dream, but you've hit on it. There's the work, there's the profits, there's the scale that you have to go to, whether you're an entrepreneur, an entrepreneur, whatever you're building in your life. And if you don't actually have the path, like, because I've done a cold plunge before, I've done some self-help stuff, but that's not what gets you there. That just get you to feel like you're doing something. But I don't know. That's just my little rant there. I'm more about the work than the pre-work thing that you heard your latest greatest guru tell you.
Yes, and those again, they're important, but we can't get caught up in there's analysis paralysis where people just want to learn all the things they want to do. Yes, affirmations and gratitude journals and cold plunges. They do give,
Mhm.
they build discipline, they do build muscles of, and they make you healthy, but you can't get stuck in reading and reading and reading and learning and learning and learning. There has to be a point to where you're applying as much or more than you're learning, or you're not going to be yet making the money and growing your business. And again, we need you to succeed. At my last event a week ago, we had Jeff Griffin talk. He is a paraplegic who was told he would never walk again, and he did. It took him decades, but he walked, and he demonstrated that for us, and the power of not giving up on your dreams, which again is super important. And I shared that with the audience too, that when I was building Ignition Point, that my business mentor at the time told me that I was making a fool of myself and that I couldn't do this. And of course, obviously, I didn't listen to him and got a different mentor
Mhm.
and launched and scaled. But I asked the audience, I said, how many people here have gotten value today because I followed my dreams? Of course, all the hands went up, right? Because we had some amazing speakers, not just Jeff living his dreams, but all of them. I said, so if James Dixon and Baron Baptiste and Dan Clark and these guys hadn't lived their dreams, you guys wouldn't have learned from them today. So we need you to live yours. We need
Mhm.
you to get beyond visionary and into applying what you've learned today and taking action and growing your business, because just like you guys got value from my dreams today and Dan's dreams and Baron's dreams, the world needs you to succeed. We need the not just you building a life for yourself, but the jobs that you're going to bring, or the ability to be there for your kids. Those ripples go out, and those are the things that make our world a better place. We need you to succeed. And so that is why we bring forth these things. I bring forth people who do talk about mindset and drive and resiliency, but also the applicable content on how to grow a global empire without an investor. Like, who gets to learn from Baron Baptiste face to face about that? And so, that's why I'm bringing these things. So you are growing, you are scaling, you are succeeding, and you're making your life better, your family's life better, but our community and our planet better. It
I
is
love
like
this.
entrepreneurship to me is the world's greatest personal development program.
is because you don't get to hide from yourself. You have to look at where you're at each and every day and understand, okay, crap, am I going to move forward or backwards? And like you said, no one holds you accountable but you. Having not accountable the partners there, but like you still have to make those choices. So here's my question for you, because I love what you said. I keep hearing this thread: make the world better. So in your terms, when you say that you need to make the world better, impact it more, what do you mean?
Well, by bringing forth the calling that is in your heart. What if you're a humanity plus, not a humanity minus. Now there are businesses that thrive on basically poisoning people, cigarette companies or whatever, but those are not the people that I coach or mentor. The entrepreneurs with a dream in their heart for this product or this service, whatever it is that they love and they're passionate about, is something that is typically going to make our world a better place. Now, even if it's just a new clothing line, if you believe in it, it's making those women feel better and feel prettier, but it's also feeding your family, and then it's feeding your VA, and then it's feeding your personal assistant. And then if you grow and scale enough, you then get to hire housekeepers and landscapers, and you're providing jobs for the economy as you grow and scale your business. So, and you're again refining yourself with all of the things that you learn as an entrepreneur along the way, and then those ripples go out just like your business grows and scales our economy around you. So does your personal development that you learn, because you can't help but be that person out into the world. You're teaching who you are and what you've learned to then your children and then your neighbors and your local community. And they are inspired by you taking action as well. That is why I did start public speaking and did start being a guest on podcasts, not because I want to be some famous person, because in my mind, I'm still just that broken, lost mom that was homeless and didn't figure it out soon enough. In my mind, I'll always be that person. You can take what do they say? You can take the person out of the slums, but you can't take the slums out of the person. But enough people have come to me when I did finally start speaking and sharing my story of, wow, I needed to hear that. I needed to know because I'm in that space right now. And I needed to know that if you can get out, I can get out. And so that's why I do what I do, and I'm sure that's why you have a podcast and that's why you're doing what you do as well, because it is the way that we make the world a better place. A rising tide lifts all ships, and I'm 100% about collaboration. In fact, I don't compete with other business coaches at all. My At my very first event, two other business coaches helped fill the room for me. We work together. We refer clients together, because if you're truly in it to help everyone succeed, the right clients are drawn to you to work with. And there is enough business for everyone. And we all can grow. Like, if we have an abundance mindset instead of a scarcity mindset, we all grow a lot more together.
No, 100% agree. And what I love is that you are willing to, for lack of a better term, shine your light or tell your story so others can see the way. I think that's part of it with super successful people. Why we share is because we want other people to get to become who they are. Like, I grew up in the country poor. I went through a lot of crazy stuff. You went through a lot of trauma, and you don't want people to have to deal with that. You want them to live a life that they love waking up to. So no, I love that a lot. I want to shift a little bit here though, because we talked about it. So for the young girl out there that's looking at her life and wants to chase her dreams, whatever that is, I don't put any rules on. Maybe she doesn't, maybe she wants to be a ballerina, maybe she wants to be whatever. Give me like, just speak to that girl listening right now, what you would tell yourself if you were her.
Well, it's first of all, it's never too late and there's always a way. Even with my hobbies, I am actually, my hobby is I'm the lead singer in a classic rock band, and I didn't even start that hobby till after I was already a grandma. And I had no formal singing training either. So it's just a principle of deciding what you want and being ready, willing, and able to focus on that and take steps towards that, no matter where you are starting. If you have not a penny to your name and six kids to feed and nowhere to live, again, there's podcasts and there's the library and there's friends that you say, hey, this is what I want to do. who and what and where can I learn how to do this? And you just start taking action no matter how little it is. If it's 5 minutes in the morning where that you have to read the book for
Mhm.
5 minutes every morning until you find the next step, until you find the next step. And then you find the little side hustle and you take 20% of that and you save it for your first certification. That's what I did. I got one certification at a time, and then I'd take a portion and I'd feed my kids what I needed to, and I'd pay whatever tiny bills that we did have because we were fortunate to live with other people for a time. And then I would get the next certification, and then I'd save up with that, and I'd charge a little more, and then I'd get the next one. And I just took action as much as I could because the mindset again will produce the way for you to see the opportunities instead of just sitting there whining and complaining, which just drains your energy and takes your time away. I mean, what if I asked you, hey, if you want to have an argument about how hard life is and I charged you $300 to do that for an hour, would you say yes? No,
No.
but that's literally what we're doing when we sit and
Yep.
whine for an hour and argue for our excuses. Guess what? We get to keep them, and it just cost us. It just cost us that time and energy building something new instead.
Oh, that's amazing. Debbie, where can people find you?
Our podcast is the best way on YouTube at Ignition Point Podcast. And then my website is ignitionpointacademy.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Debbie Hart. So we, provide a lot of our resources, tools, free ebooks, our trainings on all of those platforms.
Awesome. So before I let you go, is there anything else that we missed, not touched on, that you want to leave our listeners with?
Just know that if there is a calling in your heart, there is a way. It's not some frou frou little woo woo guru saying it is the truth. It's your own North Star. It's your higher calling. It's your mission. It's your purpose. If that dream to build something on your own is in your heart, then there is a way. So take action, whatever action you can, a little bit every day, and you will be amazed at the doors that open. Find the teachers, find the accountability as quick as you can, get mentors, get coaches, start networking with other people doing what you're doing, and your life will change and the way will be made for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Debbie, for being on the show. And I'm going to leave you with this. Get your passion, your purpose, your plan, move forward, and have people help you because most people want to see you succeed. And until next time, just read 5 minutes. Have a good day.